Another guy who might have a part to play suddenly is Bojan Miovski. He'd been kind of in and out the team. When he scored, was it a double against Kilmarnock? I think a lot of people expected him to kind of kick on. Never really happened. But all of a sudden, he just looks a bit happier, a bit sharper. Sounds like Ryan Naderi is going to be out for the rest of the season. We'll obviously find out more this week when Danny Rohl gives his conference. We'll get an update on Tour Romans as well. Is Miovski a guy? These kind of bit part players. We focused last week on Asgard, and I suggested he might be someone who has a part to play. Bojan Miovski will have a part to play. How important is it that these guys step up in these last 5 games, as well as those kind of leaders like, Nico Raskin?
Well, listen, I think you're right. You're looking back to that Kilmarnock game, he also scored 2. Then they go to Fenerbahce. He scores with a fantastic sort of acrobatic finish in that game, but he picks up an injury. And I think that's been Miovski's issue this season, is that he's just not had the run of games. Everybody I spoke to about him says that he's a guy that he needs to sort of play his way in. You can't just give him 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, the odd start, and hope that he'll find his goal scoring rhythm. He obviously, he's harshly had a goal chopped off against Aberdeen that was quite harsh. He then gets one against Dundee United, gets a couple against Falkirk. I think you're now starting to see him, find his groove a wee bit. But he has to keep playing. I think if let's say he comes out the team for the Motherwell game, and you try and then throw him back in against Hearts, I don't think that's going to help him. I think if you really want to get the best out of him, you have to continue playing him. I agree. The big downside to his game is he's just not involved enough. He's not enough of a presence at the top end of the pitch. But what he is, undoubtedly for me, is the best finisher at the club. He's a more reliable goal scorer than Chermiti, obviously. I think he's obviously a better scorer than Naderi. But what those two other guys give you is, something to hit at the top end of the pitch. If you're under pressure, if you're needing to get out, you've got guys that have got, they're 6 foot plus, but they've got energy, they've got strength. Miovski's a big lad himself, but I just don't think he's that, getting tangled up with centre backs and that physical side of the game, that's not what he's all about. He wants to be, running off the shoulder. He wants to be, finding space in the box to score goals. You saw that against Falkirk. So for me, I think having Chermiti can work, and I think that can actually have a benefit to Chermiti, because I think if you've all of a sudden got somebody who's a dependable finisher up there, and maybe it doesn't put quite so much the same pressure on Chermiti, who we know can be flaky. I mean, you saw he missed a bad chance. He was offside, but he missed a bad chance against Falkirk first half. Obviously, gets the goal second half. That would have lifted his spirits. But then Miovski comes up with a finish just after. Really, sort of just knees it in. Just for me, a proper striker's finish. Just get the ball over the line any way you can. He did that, and I think from there you saw Chermiti's realise, okay, I've got somebody I can play with. I can be somebody that can help share that burden. It's not all on me. And then I think you saw the sort of pressure come off Rangers' shoulders in that second half, and obviously they end up with 6 goals. So having 2 guys like that, a Chermiti who can run the channels, who can hold the ball up, who can mix it with centre backs, and then a proper number 9 in the 6-yard box looking to tuck stuff away. I think that's a positive recipe for Rangers, but there's no doubt he has to. I think he has to play, consistently in terms of being selected. He has to be given that opportunity in the run, and I don't think there's any. Let's say Naderi comes back and Danny Rohl decides to sort of chop and change it in the last couple of 2 or 3 games this season. I don't think that helps Miovski. I think he has to be given that trust that that faith that he's a starting striker, and allow him to find his rhythm if he's going to be an effective force down the final stretch.
I think he's certainly. I've watched him closely when Rangers have been shooting at the Copeland end this season, and even when we were struggling, I was always impressed with his movement. I always felt he was kind of the one moving along the line, trying to make angles, trying to make runs in behind. Sometimes when the ball got to him, it didn't always work out.
Yeah. But that's the thing, didn't stick with him. That was the time. He didn't. It wasn't a guy who liked playing back to goal in the way that I say Chermiti does or Naderi does.
But I think the main issue for me is that the ball rarely actually went to him earlier in the season. People weren't, nobody seemed to want to take a chance with a pass. Maybe a bit more now. Danny Rohl seems to have stumbled on this kind of two up front with Naderi and Chermiti. I think it'll be interesting now to see if he sticks with it, especially at Tynecastle and Celtic Park. I think he'll stick with it this weekend against Motherwell. So I think we will see Miovski start, assuming Naderi is out for the rest of the season.